Hello and welcome to Lesson 11 of the topic of resources and energy resource management. This session is going to be looking at our first specific example of a place that is managing their energy resources a certain way. So we're going to be looking at sustainable energy management in China specifically. So by the end of this session you should know the reasons why China is attempting to manage their energy resources in a sustainable way, and also look at how they're doing that. So not only why they're doing it, but also how they're doing it. And so that's what we're going to be covering for both China, and we're going to look at Germany next lesson. So one of those countries is an emerging or developing country, in this case China, and the other one, Germany, is a developed country. It's really important, like in other topics as well, like with changing cities for example, that you know the difference between the terms emerging and developing as one term and developed. Because in an exam they will not say China, they will not say Germany. Even though they're the ones you've learned, they will not tell you, because other students will learn and use different countries. Most will probably use China and Germany because they're the ones that are on Seneca, the ones in the textbook, but they will not specify China or Germany because the option is you could use any. So make sure you understand that China is your example of an emerging / developing country, and Germany is going to be your developed country case study. Alright, so write down today's title and learning objective. Maybe underline and highlight the word emerging, and hopefully once you've done that, it will just stick in your mind a little bit more, because every year we get someone that answers a question brilliantly, but they use the wrong case study. They'll give me a great answer. The question says a developed country, and they give me China as the answer, and with all the detail answered exactly right, except it's all for an emerging or developing country, and so they get 0 marks. So make sure you do know the distinction between the two. Okay, so as a bit of a starter, just to see what you think, this is a true or false thing. So again, you don't have to write any of this down. If you want to use it for stats and facts and figures, you can, but this is just to really kind of get you thinking about China as an energy giant. So China has become the world's third largest producer of carbon dioxide, the major greenhouse gas responsible for climate change. Is that true or false? It is false. It's actually the world's biggest producer. In 2014, they were responsible for 29% of global carbon emissions. Now, before we go too bad about China, they are a population of 1.3 or 1.4 billion people, and per person, they actually don't produce anywhere near the same amount of carbon dioxide as a country like the USA, which is far and away the most wasteful per person. So before you start blaming China about all the carbon dioxide they're producing, yes, they are producing the most, but they also are the most populated place on the planet, and therefore have the most people to produce carbon dioxide. If everyone in America used as much carbon dioxide per person as those that do in China, the world would absolutely be a better place for it in terms of our greenhouse gas emissions. Next one. China burns more coal than the United States, Europe and Japan combined, causing significant air pollution. That is true. 7 of the world's 10 most polluted cities are in China. That is also true. Only 10% of the country's 560 million city dwellers are believed to be breathing air that is considered safe by EU standards. So only 1 in 10 people that live in cities in China is breathing safe air. True or false? That's false. It's actually only 1% of people that live in China's cities are breathing EU safe air. In 2007, China produced 100 million tonnes of CO2, and Britain produced around 600 million tonnes. I hope you get this one. Okay, that one is false. China actually produced 6,200 million tonnes of CO2. Britain did produce 600 million, but China produced 10 times that amount. Okay, again, I would argue that there are some good stats in here, as long as you make sure you write down the true ones, for you to use if you were to have to answer a question about an emerging or developing country and their management of energy. Alright, so sustainable management in China and energy management in China is going to be something which you're going to be doing much of the work yourself, but I will provide you with the information. So I'll give you the information, similar to the last lesson actually, where I gave you information which you summarised. This is going to be pretty much the same thing. So following on from last lesson, we are really just giving a good specific example of a country rather than a corporation like McDonald's, for example. This is a country and how they're drastically, sustainably managing their energy usage and production. So this is something worth writing down as well. This is all background to sustainable energy management in China. This is all basically why are China sustainably managing their energy. So if you'd like to put like a little subheading to say why are China sustainably managing energy, then please do, and then write maybe some of these down as the bullet points as they appear. So back in 2006, China worked out that really they need to start producing energy in a more sustainable way, and they came up with the China Renewable Energy Law. Okay, so they put it into law legally, and that was the aim was then to develop renewable energy resources and make it a legally binding thing. So according to the China Renewable Energy Law, by 2020, so last year as I'm recording this, they wanted to reduce their dependence on coal, obviously one of the worst polluting CO2 fuels, from it providing about 64% of their energy to about 58% of their energy. So I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but that reduction of 6% is a big change. They wanted to increase nuclear power by 1.5% and wind power by 4.5%, and that would make up the additional 6% difference, okay, of their total energy generation. So that's the kind of plan. They wanted to have that as a target. And they also, rather than the places that were burning coal, they said, well, if you still are going to burn coal, you must use the better coal, because believe it or not all coal is made equal. Some types of coal are not as good or as efficient and pollute more in urban areas as well, specifically. So the stat, we've got about 1% of people living in Chinese cities is breathing safe air. They recognise that's a problem. They want to try and reduce that issue. They want to try and increase the number of people breathing safe air by maybe burning less polluting coals in urban areas. Right, so there you go. You've got a bit of justification as to why China wanted to manage their energy sustainably from this PowerPoint slide and the facts and figures one from before, and also what their kind of targets were. They wanted to, by law, make it so that less of their energy was being produced by coal. Again, pause the screen to get any information you need. Now, these are the different strategies that China want to try and implement, or they're examples of. There's obviously more going on whole scale, but they spent in 1 year $83 billion worth of money. $83 billion. Far more than any other country when it came to investing in sustainable energy, on developing different types of sustainable energy within China. And I've got examples of those for you. Now, you're going to be making notes on the Three Gorges Dam, which we've already looked at a little bit, about 2 lessons ago or so, when you did that sort of set of 3 lessons in one video. You had the hydroelectric power station of the Three Gorges Dam as one of your examples. So you should know a little bit about that. But the Three Gorges Dam, and if you want to watch our guy in China, you can't use the ClickView link, but you can certainly find it on YouTube, I would have thought. There is a solar power station in Delinga, so the Delinga power plant is a good example of a solar power station, and there's the Dabancheng wind farm as well. So you've got 3 examples of renewable tech which China are doing as examples of ways that they are sustainably producing and managing their energy. You can see there are 2 others that I've written there, but they are extension only. If you want to add your information, then fine. I mean, in an exam, absolutely no way will you need more than 2 or 3 maximum examples of sustainable energy management in China. But this is something, if you are interested, then it might be, you might want to look up the Kaiyu Green Energy Biomass Power Generating Project, snappily titled, or the Yangbai-Jian geothermal field. So you may want to look at those examples as well, but you might not. It's just up to you. So I've got information for you for those first 3, and what I'd like you to do is write down some examples, some stats and facts and figures from each of them, and then that will really be building your case study for China should you get it in an exam question. Alright, so we'll start with the Three Gorges Dam. Background information is on the screen now. I've divided this up, by the way, in terms of background information, advantages, disadvantages. So please make sure you structure your notes in a very similar way. Just makes it easier to pick out information when it comes to revising it. So I would, if I were you, pause the screen. I'm not going to dwell on the screen, and there's no way you can write as quick as I can click a mouse. So pause the screen, complete your notes, and then when you're ready you can unpause the screen and I'll move on to the next section. So this is the background info of the Three Gorges Dam. Okay, so advantages of the Three Gorges Dam. Loads of good stats in here. Some of them are a bit vague, but having some good stats is worthwhile. So pause the screen and get this information down for your notes, please. And some disadvantages, and again, lots and lots of stats. Don't need all of them, just one or two is absolutely fine. Make sure you realistically could get some in for the exam. If you're only getting one or two, the onus is on you remembering those one or two definitely. If you write down more, you've got more options to revise from or to pick from. If you pick stats, if it was me, I'd be picking nice round numbers. Okay, so if the dam cost 30 billion, that's a nice round number, but 632 square kilometers of habitat, not as easy to remember. You could just round that down to maybe 600 kilometers and write the word approximately, because even if you write approx and a number like 600, which is a very specific number, it still looks like a specific number to the examiner, and they will still credit that as specific information. So pause the screen, get that extra information down. Okay, so now moving on to the Delinga power plant, solar power plant in China. Let's have a little look at this one. So get that as a subheading. Background information, pause the screen, get it down. Advantages, again, lots of stats here for you. And disadvantages. A few stats for you as well. Okay, and now you've completed the notes for the Delinga solar power station. Now we're going to be looking at the Dabanshan wind farm as our final example. And we've got background. Followed by some advantages. Won't need them all, I'll just reiterate that. You do not need all these advantages, just a couple of them, ones that you find memorable, and if it's got a stat that works with it, great, that's better. And finally, some disadvantages. Not so many stats in this one, but there are place names identified. So Xinjiang is a place that, again, would count as a stat because it's very specific information. Okay, so now what you should have in your notes is a really good case study with specific detail about China's background and why it decided, it would probably be a good idea to change its energy generation strategy. So in terms of its polluted cities, in terms of the CO2 it produces, the world's biggest producer, etc. Also some of the background to the renewable energy law in China, as well as 3 very specific renewable energy examples with lots of stats and advantages and disadvantages. If you wanted to, and I did say this was extension work, if you wanted to, you could also look at the Yangbai-Jian geothermal field, which is a tectonic-based energy source. If you want to. Again, this is just optional. There's no way in an exam they're going to expect you to do more than, even 2 to be honest with you, but more than 2 or 3 specific, sorry about that noise, 2 or 3 specific examples. But if you were interested, here's the background information on the Yangbai-Jian geothermal field. And I'm not going to dwell on it, so please pause if you want to read it. Advantages of it, followed by disadvantages. And then the biomass, the Caillou Green Energy Biomass Power Generating Project. Again, worst titled project ever. That's the general information, background info. I find this one interesting because using rice husks It's not something we're used to using in this part of the world, because we tend to use things like wheat and barley husks. There's some advantages and some disadvantages as well. Okay, so that has concluded this first case study of an example of a place that's managing their energy resources in a sustainable way and investing a vast amount of money in sustainable energy management. Next lesson, we're going to be looking at a developed country example. So we're going to be looking at Germany and their Energiewende or energy transition project. Thank you very much for listening. I will see you next time.